platform. We won't be able to, go around and do a full-blown introduction because it's a big group. Um, but, if you're asking a question, comment, do introduce yourself so, we can do that along the way. So in terms of the agenda for today, we are going to cover two big items. And if time permits, I've got a slight A or B, but I do doubt it because, we've got like, substantial items on the agenda. For those who were able to make the meeting last time, we talked about the London Analytics platform and described how a BI analyst can interact with the platform and described how a data engineer interacts with the environment. So just to finish that, we want to show how a researcher interacts with the environment. So we're going through the researcher persona today, and no doubt that will trigger a lot of questions and comments, which we can answer or take away if we can't answer. Followed by that, we are going to have a complete change of topic and look at the dashboards that will be generated from the London Analytics platform and how the roles-based access will be set up on those dashboards. This was because quite a few questions came about in relation to this when we had the last show and tell. So that's how I set up the agenda, take some of the discussions and questions from this group, which is super helpful and handy. So for the first item on the agenda, let me pass on to Ben Pierce. Ben, thank you. Ben, if you want to introduce yourself and then, talk through how you interact with the environment, that'd be super helpful for the group. Thanks, Ben.
Yeah, thanks to you, Kavitha. Hi, everyone. My name is Ben. I'm a head of data analytics for the Discover Now team in Northwest London's and use Wizzic on a daily basis. And happy to show you the process of logging in, some of the highlights of using the environment. And of course, this is for you, so please do feel free to interrupt at any time. I'm going to be sharing my screen, so I may not see any hands. So indeed, feel free to interrupt. So what you'll see from the very beginning is my desktop, just a standard desktop that is for my work computer. And if I were a new researcher gaining access to the environment, one of the first things that happens is I would receive these instructions on downloading the software needed to gain access. So that's this remote desktop setup wizard. Well, I already have that on my pin bar, so I'm going to click on that now, and then you'll be able to see step by step how this works. The first step is by putting in your username. I've already logged in today, so it's already here. So this is an email address and affiliation that you'll be assigned with. Copy in my password that I've saved already, and that then proceeds to gaining access to the remote desktop here. So this is the secure data environment. You'll find everything that you need here on the left. Just a note for anyone who's not clearly familiar with how File Explorer works out. This is really the most common question I've gotten. Just simply click on this search bar, and then you'll find File Explorer here, for looking for any of your files and where to save some things. But for now, what I want to show you is some analytical tools and some of the common processes that our team carries out, and as a researcher that one would be carrying out themselves. And to start with, I want to show you Azure ML, which is really fantastic for analytical needs. And so in doing this, click into your account. I only have one. This is a single sign-on step, so this proceeds to take you here. And the reason I'm showing you this first is that it does take a minute or so for the compute to get started. And as this is the demonstration, a minute can feel like a lifetime. So I'll get this started and then come back to it later. So if I need to start my compute, I would click on my account here, and it's already running because I've done this already today. But I would hit start, and that would allow me to access any of the analysis that I would need to carry out. As some examples of that, I'm here in the notebook section. I can find any project folders, and as one example here, I can show you. So this is a fine one. Here's some Kaplan-Meier curves that I've plotted here for this project. It's quite easy to use. This is, if you're familiar with R programming language, this is in base R. Python can be used as well, but one can plot out anything that you would need. Easy to magnify, easy to make PowerPoint slides that can be easily exported off the server whenever you need. I saw, I think, a hand pop up. Was there a question?
No, Ben, no.
Oh,
Somebody was
okay.
just joining the call.
Maybe it was
Yeah.
somebody joining. Thanks, Kavitha. So that's an example of one slice of R analysis. You can also carry out Python as well. So there's different kernels, and you'll note here that this is obviously a Python kernel, where you can use just as easily as in R these cells to carry out your Python analysis, and it's very efficient. It's wonderful to have such powerful tools at your disposal. I mean, hundreds of thousands of rows can be processed very quickly in a Zermel, and we can create things like um, these models for predicting length of stay for all of the trust in Northwest London is this one example. So it's quite a useful tool here for this analysis. They can also connect to Snowflake. So Snowflake, you've heard in the past several weeks, that's where the tables and the WYSIG data reside. And there's two options that I'd like to point out on how to access the data itself. One is by using the Snowflake browser. Here we ignore the username and password. I've already signed in to access the environment. So I click on sign in using Azure AD SSO. That's a single sign on here. And there's, I think, one main tool that you would be working with, and that's SQL worksheets. So a really nice thing is that previous worksheets are automatically saved. So if there's one that, I need to revisit this one, you can easily access that. If you need to create a totally new SQL query, you can click on the SQL worksheet and that brings you here. Just note that the default setting has to be updated. Its default is set on public, but that really doesn't work well. Well, what you need to do is to select your warehouse. As I'm part of the ICHP warehouse, this is the one that I'd like to pick, and choose the small warehouse is perfectly fine. That needs to then be updated here as well, and then you're set to go. And what's terrific here is that everything is really automatically filled out for you. So for example, if I need to see entries from the GP events table, it's brought up here. Now I'm not going to show you this, that's patient level data. It would be millions of rows. But this is just one example of one thing that can be done. Obviously, your SQL queries will be more interesting than this one. Another feature that I like to point out are the dashboards. This is a really nice tool, and I've created some of these for one of the projects that I'm working on. This is a fine one here where if you have a set cohort, Snowflake automatically outputs some standard data plots. You can show the size of the cohort, um, uh, data based on gender, ethnicity, deprivation, and you can find other distributions for any variable that you have. And here, this is showing the age at index, where you can see clearly that this event occurs more frequently in the early 40s. So it's the Snowflake browser is a very nice tool to use. One of the strongest features is that the results aren't limited to 10,000 rows. However, I actually prefer VS Code. So this is Visual Studio Code. So you can write some really nice scripts, and using this is a fantastic tool to get any information that's available from the Snowflake browser. However, here, the results are limited to 10,000 rows. So it really depends on your needs. So to perform the queries here, the first step that you need to do is to connect to Snowflake, and that is done with a single sign-on here. That brings you to a connection portal, which then activates your account in VS Code, and that's what you'll find here. And it's easy to see that that's been done because then you have access to all tables that you should have access to, whether that's the DID tables shown here, or if you have sandboxes set up, you can find them here. So our organization's tables can all be found here. And you can easily then query and search which ones are here. Before I come to the question, the search function here is absolutely fantastic. I love it. It saves minutes to hours. Just to come back to the example of the project that I've been working on recently, it brings you easily the number of tables that would fit under the table here. So browsing is made quite simple. Yes, Alistair, please.
Hi, really useful so far, thanks. Hopefully a quick question. When I open the VS Code icon on the desktop, I don't have that Snowflake extension on the left, and it doesn't look like install extension. So is that a feature we need to request?
At the top row, do you have something that says manage restriction?
Top row of which?
So on my screen, do you see something about right here where it talks about restrictions and managing?
Don't think I do.
Okay.
But don't worry, I don't want to slow down the session either.
Then, no, it's absolutely fine. It's a really good question. So then, where you should go is find this, let me sort it out here. There's documentation files that should be made available to you. And the Snowflake extension for installation is found in this document here. It's called Installing VS Code Snowflake Extension, and that's what you should follow to install it on your desktop.
Got it. Yeah, I think documentations. Thanks. So I'll have a look into it. Very helpful.
And Alistair, I'll put the support mailbox in the chat as well. If you can't resolve it, if you drop them an email, they will help resolve it for you. So I do have a couple of staff members who basically support all of the de-identified users used environment.
Perfect. Thank you. That's great.
Terrific. Sunitha?
Oh, I just wanted to answer the question. So that's available as an extension under Visual Studio. So if you go to extensions in Visual Studio and type for Snowflake, you should be able to download that inside your Visual Studio. Extensions on the left-hand side, below, yep, that's on the top.
Here it is, yeah.
Yeah, that's where if you just type for Snowflake, you will get that, and you can just install that within your interface itself.
Terrific. It is a good segue to the easily available documentation here. I've run through a few of these already, but you can learn quite well how to even convert code if you're using an older language of SQL to the syntax used in Snowflake. That's found here, some FAQs, but also if you have things to learn about Azure ML or extensions, they're available here. If you need to learn about or be reminded on Snowflake, not sure why that's opening now. It's only when you're demonstrating something that does it not work. It's fine. So what I'm trying to show you is that is that the website for Snowflake is actually whitelisted here, but I always access it from this PDF document. But anyhow, all of the web pages for the Snowflake website you can access, even though the internet connection is blocked here. For those for all of those web pages, you can easily access it. Clearly, I haven't recall the exact URL, but it is open for any users in need for help with Snowflake terminology or syntax.
Yeah.
The last thing that I want to highlight really is the speed of VS Code Snowflake. It's wonderful. So I can show just one example here, and I think you might need to have had experience in the previous server to really appreciate this. But you can, what's a good one? Here's a good one. So this kind of query, which is what's the gender of everyone in the WYSIC data set, everyone in the Discover Now population in Northwest London. This would take too long in the old server, and this comes back within seconds, which is quite stunning. So this is the gender breakdown, and I can give other examples of such queries that would just take too long. Here's a count of by registration status. If you're not familiar with this, this is you're registered and still living, you've left the area, or you've unfortunately deceased. And in this case, it's anyone that has any record of ICD-10 code for atherosclerosis. And it's returned so quickly and efficiently. So hats off to Kavitha and the team, and to bringing Snowflake on board, because it's a wonderfully efficient asset. And I think will really help research moving in the right direction. And when you have that available for projects that we're working together with clients from pharma or academia, we're able to output. I mean, here's just one example for a project that we're working on for chronic kidney disease. I mean, all sorts of informative outputs here. And it's just, it's terrific to be working in such an efficient environment to, facilitate all of that. But I think that was the time I was given, and happy to take any questions from anyone, or anything else that I hope I can help out with, or talk more on if needed.
Thank you, Ben. That was super helpful. So yeah, it's literally a whistle-stop tour. Just to summarize all the things that Ben said, the bottom line is you've got a variety of products that you can interact with to do your analysis. There's R, there's Python, there's Azure ML with R and Python. You've got Visual Studio, you've got Snowflake. So depending on what you're comfortable with, what you're familiar with, you can, run your analysis using that, software. We also have Stata in the environment. I know, Ben, because of, the time factor, wasn't able to get into every single thing. So again, if you're, a statistician and, prefer interacting with the data using Stata, you can do that. You can click on Stata, it takes you in, and it's connected to Snowflake. Again, because the data is held in Snowflake, all of these other products are connected. The second point that Ben showed is everywhere there is single sign-on. So you can see that, throughout as you open everything, there is a bit of a security lock. It says sign in, but then there's single sign-on established. And also the single sign-on allows you to see just the objects that you have access to. So there is a control that is set to, enable what you're allowed to see. So when Ben was able to connect, he could see 5 objects, but say if, Ibi, who's my, data management lead, connects, he will be able to see a lot more objects. So that is, again, a feature throughout. And the third thing is the documentation. There is, documentation that we are building throughout to help, everybody get familiar. Mind you, when Ben and team, got onboarded, they had absolutely zero experience with Snowflake. And how long has it been, Ben? 2 months probably since you've started using this environment. For Ben to say that, Snowflake is a game changer. So it is not like, rocket science. People are able to get to grips with this environment quickly. And we have, run onboarding sessions for, the team, and there is lots of materials and documentation that, the users can use themselves. to gain better insights on how to maximize the use of the environment. So those are the key things really that I wanted to call out to summarize the excellent presentation from Ben. Thank you, Ben. So over to Felix and then Eddie. Felix.
Yeah, thanks for the presentation, Ben. So 2 questions. How do you share, say, code or assets among your colleagues who have got access to that? And how do you share final outputs with non-privileged users? Are they done in kind of static documents, or can you publish that in a more dynamic way?
Terrific questions. The first one is I share a sandbox with colleagues. So you'll see a number of colleagues that we share within the Imperial College Healthcare Partners sandbox area, where this is open, so we can share, as streamlined as possible, any scripts or code or results in any kind of format that is amenable on the server, that's internal to the server. When anything needs to come out of the server, we like to put that in a for extract folder, and then a request goes to the WYSIC team to say, can you please transfer these files off? Now, of course, they must be reviewed, they must be suppressed, nothing like lines of patient level data or anything sensitive. But once that's the case, that it's passed those checks, that can come off, and it usually takes it can take about an hour, depends on the backlog, but it's nothing out of the ordinary. It's nothing like a long wait. Rare is it that we wait 24 hours for anything to come off the server, but there is time needed because it is dependent on another person retrieving it from your documentation.
Yeah, there's a restriction left, Felix, because of the checks we need to undertake, exactly as Ben said, to suppress small numbers. Because of secure data environment, we say data can't be taken out, so we've got to be extremely clear that record level data can't be extracted. But yeah, as Ben says, it is just like in the hours and gets turned around in the same morning or afternoon.
It also goes in the opposite direction. I've asked for these files to be placed onto the server. I asked the WYSIC team to bring them on, and that was done within an hour on Friday.
Yeah, and on that point, Felix, basically, when we do like cohort analysis, say we are doing a service evaluation, we need to evaluate what has happened to these 100 patients who have been through a new service. We need to know who those 100 patients are. So the process will be that the 100 patients record will come to the team in a patient identifiable format from the service provider. We de-identify, push into the DID server, flag that cohort, and then whoever is running the service evaluation can analyze that cohort based on activity pre and post intervention or whatever they are trying to do. If they are running statistical process or whatever, they will take as methodology. And yeah, to share codes is the sandbox. It's a bit like your ISL sandbox area. So each sandbox is like, left for an organization. So ISCHP have a sandbox, so they can see all of the objects, all of the folders within that sandbox. But if Ben goes back and clicks on, another folder, he won't be able to access it. So if you go back to the F drive, you will see that there's all of these different folders. And if he goes onto a council one, he won't have access. So it's all like, access controlled. Eddie?
Oh yeah, thanks for the demo. Really, really interesting. I was wondering, when you were showing the Python and the R demonstration on the website, how we can manage any packages that we use, because you could choose the different runtimes. I wasn't quite sure how we could manage those.
Wonderful question. So I was doing this morning. So what is happening in the background is a population of packages has already been created here. And if you need a package, first you review if it's available. out of the hundreds, thousands perhaps that are here. You saw Shiny fly by. I mean, there's ones that you'll know and ones that you won't know probably. But if it's not here, then you request for it to be uploaded here. Then once it's here, of course, it's available from within the server. So whenever I run this, I set the path appropriately with this command, and I want to install each of these packages. Now those are then available from this repository and run this first cell. This does take a couple of minutes. This is by far the slowest process that's embedded with anything that happens here is the installation of packages. Once that happens though, everything flies from uploading for the, and of course all the analysis that follows. That's the same process in R or Python really. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, brilliant, thank you.
Thanks, Eddie. Rodney.
Since resources are finite, I'm assuming there's some kind of fair share policy around how resources are consumed.
Good question. So the compute that's been made available to us is this version of the GPU. This is what is called the standard size of computation. It certainly serves my needs, but there are more powerful options that can be made available that will be worked out with the WYSIG team. And as this does say, there's a charge here. Charging hasn't been occurred yet on this standard process, but on the more expensive, powerful computers, there is charging. And of course, I'll leave Kavitha to talk about that part of the affairs. But it's, for what we do for standard projects, R, Python, machine learning, this is absolutely, well, it fits my purposes anyway.
Yeah, great question, Rodney. So absolutely, there is a fair share of the resource. Everybody gets a standard virtual machine size, which is what Ben is showing. But, the way the compute power works is you've got a standard, you've got large, extra large, different compute size. So you can ask for a higher spec and we can enable that within hours on the same day, but it will incur additional cost. Because we have co-funding via the grant funding, there is no cross charge to the ICSs currently. But if it's a commercial project, then we will charge them. So that is really the agreement as of now. But there's a lot more work we need to do around the commercial of this, and we have got we've got a really detailed report set behind this, where we can see how much resources anybody has incurred, and we can see the costs as well, which we can make available to the commercial work stream, and who will basically deal with the cross charging. Do you want to come back on that, Rodney?
Yeah, I was just wondering, because what we all wary of is hidden charges, right? So if there's a sound rational, you said there's no cross charging. So if I had a use case and I put forward a rationale for having being a high consumer, would I be granted access, or would that be dependent on my ability to pay?
Yeah, that's what we need to discuss is, what I'm saying. So the standard size, free, no problem. If you want a higher spec, at the moment, everybody seems to be okay with the standard spec for the NHS use case. For commercial, we have definitely had people asking for higher spec because they are running high end AI model and stuff, and we have asked them to pay for that additional compute. But we will have to make a decision through our working group, Rodney, about how we recharge the ICSs, etc.
Okay.
Right. I know we are halfway down, so if that's okay with everybody, I'm just going to move on to the role-based access. But please don't think, if you've got any questions, keep putting it in the chat so you don't forget. And as I said, I'll take it away and respond via email, or we can come back to it at the next show and tell as well. So for the second part of the agenda, I'm going to invite Rachel. Rachel, thank you. if you want to talk the team through the dashboard side, and I know quite a few people in the call, Amy, Anita, all of you are interested more on the dashboard side and how it works. So this one is really giving all of you a bit of a flavor of how the roles-based access on dashboards would work.
Thank you, Kavitha. Hi, everybody. I'm Rachel McCarthy. I'm the Business Analyst and Deployment Lead. And as mentioned, I'll be taking us through the introduction to the roles-based access controls. So I'll be covering here, how does those controls work for the LAP dashboards. I'll show you a demonstration of this with some existing dashboards that are currently available in Northwest London. I'll also take you through the user access process, how we audit, single sign-on, and also finally talking about the support that comes from the London Analytics platform support team as well. So first of all, the roles-based access control. So what sort of model do we have in place for this? Well, as LAP provides the linked health data sets across London, the model really takes from the GP registered lists in each of the ICBs, in the ICSs, utilising the NHS number from that registered list and linking it to the other health data sources. This way we can ensure we have the patients who are registered to each to the practices within those ICSs. This means that the model will allow us to restrict down to a practice level. Okay, so there's in order to enable this and put this into place, we have AD groups created for all the different types of access that could be required. And the little diagram on the right-hand side here will tell us how this this will work. So for each AD group that's created, it's created on one side, and then it feeds through back into the Tableau server. So if there's a new practice that comes on board, an AD group would be created in order to group patients that come from that practice. And that AD group is just a name, and then it will be created, found then in the Tableau server. Any users who are then added into that AD group will follow this top line process. So as they are added into the AD group, there's a process called SCIM, which is an automated process feeding and checking for new users in those AD groups and pushing those through into the Tableau server. So where the AD group exists in the Tableau server, and then the user that has been added to that AD group will then be found in the Tableau server. They will have the correct access to the dashboards and the patients that or the patients that they need access to. So how does this look then from a user role? Okay, so we've got two types of user roles. We've got the patient identifiable user roles and then the non-identifiable user role. So under patient identifiable, as an example of purposes for these dashboards, you've got case finding dashboards or long-term condition management dashboards. Case finding dashboards, such as things to help practically case find individuals who would need interventions from the health sector. Long-term condition management dashboards are specific patient identifiable dashboards that would show, say, for example, people who are part of the asthma register, some people who have asthma, and then key metrics against that, the asthma condition to help manage and improve their self-manage of their LTC. The non-identifiable side, the purpose here is the population health management. So these dashboards do not include any patient identifiable data. It's all aggregate numbers, and the level of filtering on those dashboards will only go down to a practice or provider aggregate view. So you've got ICB, health boroughs, PCNs, practices or providers at that sort of level. Now, the table at the bottom here, this shows us by different types of groups of people requiring access and those different purposes I've just talked about, what type of access would individuals get. So we've got primary care, secondary care or care coordinators, social care workers, and then ICB, public health, PCN, or place-based teams types of roles. Under primary care, if they are to request access for patient identifiable access, they would require approval from a Caldicott guardian from their Caldicott guardian in the practice, in order to assure that they are asking for a legitimate reason to access that information about those patients. Okay. From secondary care, they may be requesting access to more than just one practice. It might be for multiple practices within the geographical area. So as example, it might be accessing to all the practices in Brent, or 3 or 4 practices in Brent, but more than just the one practice. And through their Caldicott guardian for their organisation would have to provide the approval for that. So those Caldicott guardians would require some information and understanding as to why that team would require access to those dashboards, what's their purpose to that, in order for them to be able to make a true decision on whether it would be a legitimate reason to access those patients' information on the identifiable dashboards. Same goes for the social care workers. But when we look at ICB, public health, PCN and place-based teams, they will not receive access to this. Okay. When we look
Rachel,
at then the...
Rachel, shall we pause and take questions? I've got
Yes,
Amy
sorry,
and
I can't
Felix.
see anybody.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Gives you a chance to take a breath. Amy.
Thanks. This is a really, really helpful table. I'm curious about a column that I sort of expected to see here and don't. It's I don't know whether we call it a sub-place or a supra practice, but it's things that happen at either PCN or increasingly will happen at the neighborhood level. And it would be really great if we could add a column into the table that started to articulate how things will work at that level, because I think looking forward, those are some of the structures where case finding activity and long-term conditions management activity is very likely to take place. So can you say anything about that?
So with those types of roles, what we would see is that in this scenario, in the current day, with those, we would have to receive access or approval from the Caldicott guardians of each of the practices, unless the organisation that we're talking about, where the neighbourhood team comes from, or a sort of federation of practices maybe come from, has a legitimate access to patient identifiable information already and has a Caldicott guardian as part of their organisation. So this comes back to like the legal purpose of people seeing patient identifiable information. But in the current structure, those so we could take neighbourhood team as an example, where they are seen across multiple different practices. If they are, maybe it's somebody who's already part of just one practice and they need to see access to multiple different practices, they could contact and work with the other practices, Caldicott guardians, in order to get that access approved for that purpose.
So Amy, at the moment, PCNs, the place-based partnership, INTs, all of them are clubbed in that ICB column. So that's why you see ICB stroke public health, stroke PCN, stroke bar-based partnership, and it's actually stroke INT as well. Because at the moment, PCNs, INTs, and place-based partnership do not have the legal basis to see patient identifiable data, unless there is some kind of an honorary contract type arrangement that the staff members working for those organizations have with the member practices and organization. That's what Rachel is trying to describe. So we need to see a copy of that contractual relationship before we are able to grant access to patient identifiable data.
So I wonder whether we could still put the column in, because the answer isn't no access. The answer is there are different criteria, different thresholds to clear. But it's going to be so important that we understand how things work, and that at a local level, we can start, and I know Tony's on the call and Steve's on the call. There's lots of work we'll need to do locally in order to enable the sorts of activities we want to take place at that level to be able to happen. So it'd be really helpful for this table if we could just elaborate that bit.
That's fine. Yeah, absolutely.
Completely
No
agree.
problem.
Thanks.
Completely
Really
agree.
helpful.
That's exactly what we are doing as well internally in Northwest London.
I'm
So
sure.
what we could do, Rachel, is expand that to take PC and Barbie's partnership out and put a separate column.
Yeah, sure.
Felix,
No problem.
do you want to come in before Rachel carries on?
Yes, please. The other user persona I'm thinking of are developers or people that will be altering the dashboards. So not clinicians, but people doing development work. That would be helpful to know and to be clear. Can a developer be an ICB employee, or do they need to be within the London Analytics Platform program? That distinction would be helpful. And then another point is, do all users require an NHS.net email? Are .gov emails supported? How does the AD work?
I'll answer the second part and then I'll ask Vita to do the first part if you don't mind, Felix.
Yeah,
sure.
So second part about the email addresses, as long as .gov works, .nhs.net, nhs.uk, all of those sort of combinations, they all work with the AD groups. Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
And we have what we call as a guest login, because it's all Azure AD. The AD is actually held in Azure, and we have allowed gov.uk also to have access. In terms of your first question, Felix, is a bit like what Marcus put in the chat. Currently, no ICBs other than Northwest London have agreed to use this platform for BI use case. So within Northwest London, we have our information sharing framework, which has basically named ICB staff as data processor for the purpose of developing those dashboards, which means we are allowed to see patient identifiable data. And we create the patient identifiable dashboards for all of these users in the table to access, rather than multiple people having to develop dashboards. So we have streamlined it. So we will have to discuss that with each of you ICBs as you come on board, how you're structured, who would be the ones developing these dashboard. Would you like to control it centrally by the ICB like we have done, or would you have a different federated model? Because there's several models. It's not to say you have to do what Northwest London has done, but whichever group is basically allowed access to patient identifiable data, we will enable them to have full access to all of the data set for the purpose of management and maintenance, which is what my team, who's got that capability, has got. So such a subset, it's like 6 people on my team, not my entirety of the BI team at all. So it's a very, very controlled access, and they are the only 6 people who can develop patient identifiable dashboard, whilst the rest of the BI team can only do aggregate dashboard. So it may be a bit synonymous with your healthy intent team in North Central. That's what it's set out to be. Ibi, did you want to come in on that?
Yeah, just I guess you can create the dashboards within the DIGenity environment as well, and then we can move that across to publish on the PID side if required. So I guess the development can still happen if you've got access to the environment, and then we can take the people who've got access to the PID side can take that on as well. So that's probably another approach that we could use.
Yeah, because we're trying different models. Since there is such a demand for dashboard, clearly if you have these 5-6 people, they are inundated with requests for identifiable dashboard. So ZB says we've started this model where we have said to the rest of the BI team, create the dashboard in the DID, and then all this PID team will have to do is re-identify and publish it.
Great. Okay. Yeah. So that sounds like a positive model, and my reflection is that it's limited at the moment, but this is this is a choice that we can make, and we're in conversation with other ICBs around, not a technical limitation that we have to
Correct.
accept. That's what I want to put
That's
across.
correct. That's
Excellent.
exactly right, Felix. Thank you. Rodney?
I think you pretty much answered Felix's question, and I think you probably should put developer here, because people are going to be using this slide and this table for reference, and it just communicates it quicker and prevents people from asking and wondering, with maybe some kind of footnote what it means.
Yep.
And how the governance will be supported around it.
Sure, thank you, Rodney. We will do that. I know I circulated the slides mainly for people to look at it and come with question. But yeah, we will do that and share back as well. Rachel, if you want to carry on, I'm conscious of time as well.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to just show you a quick demonstration of how this actually changes, how this RBAC really works. I'm going to use our demo environment to show this. So the first access I've got here, this is a aggregate dashboard, as you can see, but I also have this button over here that takes me through to a patient list. So this access is based on somebody who works in the practice. They only have access to patients in that practice. In this scenario, they have access to a practice, made up practice called EFRA. I have to reference it myself because it's made up. EFRA practice in H&F. Borough. So on the aggregate dashboard, I can see all the different boroughs. They're all selected there. If I go to the patient list, we will see here, it will open up and it will show me a list of made up patients, but in real life, this would be patient identifiable information, all the people who met the criteria on that aggregate dashboard. And I'm just going to make a mental note of this patient ID here, 2730. Now, if I go back to the dashboard and as I said, this was a practice in H&F. So if I tried to look for practice in Brent, as an example, let that filter the dashboard through, go back to that patient list, and now I see nothing. I don't have access to those patients. There's no more patients there. I can't see them. Okay. If I want to just make sure that I'm talking and showing you what I'm, doing exactly as I'm saying, I'm looking at all the boroughs here, but I'm going to filter for that practice. Apply. It's going to filter back down. And look at that patient list again. I should see that same patient ID number 2730 at the top. So it's going to only let me see the patients that I have access to. So that's somebody with just access to one practice. Now, my next example is logging in as a person who has access to practices across an entire borough. In this instance, I have access to practices in Brent. Okay, so I can click on the patient list just to see who do I have on here. As you can see, it's already a different number that I'm looking at, ends in 159. And if I go back to the dashboard, I can search for EFRA, the previous practice that was in Hammersmith and Fulham in H&F. Apply that. I now go to the patient list. I don't see it. Okay, so I'm definitely seeing a different list of patients here. Okay, so remove that filter from there, and this time I'm going to filter to Brent. Press apply. And it doesn't matter which practice I select in here, all of them will show me their patients. I'm going to just go back to the patient list to see. Yep, I've got 159 there. And I can select any practice off that list. Randomly pick that one. Oh, so unselect all, randomly pick that one now and apply. Got 34 patients here. Click patient list, and it's going to filter me down to just those patients from that practice. Okay. So I've got a whole list of patients from Brent showing there. I can't see those ones from H&F now. On the H&F previous one that I saw, I could only see those patients from that one practice. Now, the final one I'm showing you is going to be the population health user. And it's a really simple one to show you, because the first thing you should notice is there's now no button for patient list. I don't have any option. I can't even try to go to patient list. It doesn't exist. So this is the difference in the RBAC controls and being able to see how they work across the same dashboard for those 3 different types of users. Okay, back to the presentation. And Kavitha, if you wouldn't mind letting me know if somebody puts their hand up again, that'd be fab. Thank you. Obviously, to get access to these dashboards, there is a user access process, and as part of that user access process, we obviously have to ensure that we know who should have access to what to make the RBAC controls work appropriately. So there is one access form per team. It's an Excel form, and as it gets completed, it takes all the relevant information that we need in the LAP support team in order to process that. Now, every form will need an approver. As we mentioned earlier, it will either be a Caldecott Guardian or a senior manager. And this is to access the front end of the dashboards I'm talking about here. So those people who are going to be utilizing the front end of these dashboards. You can see there's a bit of a high level flow diagram to show you how this all works. And the LAP support team is right in the center here, who will ensure that this process moves as smoothly as possible throughout each of the different stages, all the way to the point where we get access granted. Now, at the point of a user being provided access, they will receive an invite. And this is where I want to take us through onto the single sign-on process. So we have implemented a single sign-on process for accessing the dashboards, for users to be able to access dashboards as seamlessly as possible. It will utilize the email address from your work email, whether that's nhs.net or .gov or nhs.uk, I think is the other sort of example. The first time that you are given access, you receive an invite that looks like this email here, and the user has to click accept invite. And when they've done that, there will be step-by-step process, like a wizard that will take you through how to log in. And it will ask you for your email address, put in your credentials. Once you've done it the first time, you won't need to do it again. Okay. The benefits of doing this means that you're less likely to be disabled due to inactivity. You don't have a separate username and password, so you don't have to remember something additional. You know, big bits of these can sometimes be those barriers or blockers to getting access to information like this for people. But of course, we want to be as secure as possible. So although this means that you don't automatically get logged out after being inactive for a period of time, or you forget your username and password and so on, we still need to audit the user access process to keep and ensure the security of the system is maintained. So for auditing, every user form will have an auditor. And the auditor, I mean, in some cases it can be the same person as the approver, but particularly with Caldecott Guardians, it generally is somebody different, and it would be a senior team member who would know the team, who knows the people and knows the purpose for access. And every month, the LAP support team will send out to the ICB a list of everybody who's got access to the dashboards and what access they've been they have, all those users have at that time, for the ICB to distribute that to the auditors. The auditors will then need to review that list of individuals with their access and report back if there's any need to remove, add or change access to a user. Okay, so this will happen as a process every month. Any changes that come back to our team, the LAP support team, we will take that forward with ICHT IT, who maintain the register of the user access and the AD groups. and we will ensure that that gets implemented so that those changes are applied as appropriately and as quickly as possible. Leading me on to my final slide, which is around the support aspect from the LAP support team. As you can see here, we've got a email address now for people to contact us on, so specifically for the LAP part of this, so the support team to help with any queries we have around these items. And part of the support that will be provided in regards to the dashboards is the collateral around that dashboard. So we've got things like user guides, videos, quick reference guides. Included here the link to the website that's used in Northwest London for the dashboards that exist for Northwest London at the moment. I've just got the example here to show you. So it just lists out all these different user guides, code lists, videos, all sorts of things. Videos are published in YouTube currently for Northwest London, but the main thing I wanted to say about this is that these documentations or these pieces of support collateral will be available to the ICB for you to amend by yourselves to fit your specific requirements. You can publish it in an area that works for you. You know, I'm showing you how it's been done in Northwest London, but you might have a platform that you prefer to use or a different way of doing it or different types of information that you want to include within this. So it will be like a base to start from that you can then do more to it as you would like. So for that to work, what we would like to do is work with named individual from each ICB, like a super user or 2 or 3, however many is required for each ICB as our point of contact so that we can provide that effective support to each of the ICBs. Additionally, and finally, to let you know, we are working with NEL ICB to establish a support portal, so coming in the future, so that there is just one place for both LDS and LAP queries, which would make life a lot simpler for you all in order to raise your queries going forwards. Thank you.
Thank you,
Any
Rachel.
questions?
That was super
Sorry,
helpful.
just a
Thank
minute to
you.
go.
I know. Felix, I'm really sorry. Please pass my, sorry to Amy. I know she had some question. I don't know whether you can help pull those questions, Felix, and send over to me, and I'll be happy to respond or come and discuss with you guys, whatever is easy. Just let me know. Any questions, anyone? I know we are up on time. As I said, these two were such substantial items, so it did take time, despite it being a whistle stop. So it's almost a teaser for you to have a think. Please send, queries that you have to me, or Rachel. Rachel can put her email ID in the chat, and we will collectively collate all of those queries and respond back to you, not only on the roles-based access but also on the researcher side. But thank you all for your time today. Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks, mate.
Many thanks.